Welcome to Medicaid Mastery, a cut above explaining the real long-term care Medicaid system.
Hello and welcome to Medicaid Mastery, a cut above explaining the real long-term care Medicaid system with Medicaid guru Antony Turbeville. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we are going to untangle the complexities of crisis planning. Tony, great to see you again.
You too, Kevin.
All right, so let's start with the basics. Tell us what exactly Medicaid is and how it relates to long-term care planning.
Well, Medicaid in long-term care planning is technically a welfare program, but people shouldn't let that bother them. It is a program half funded by the federal government and half funded by the state government to help families pay for home health care, assisted living care, or nursing home care. And when it's said welfare program, really what that means is your assets and your income just have to meet the rules that they lay down. So if your assets and income are under certain limits, then the state and federal government will help pay for long-term care.
I feel like I could speak for myself. A lot of people don't know a ton about Medicare. It's probably one of those things you don't really know much about until you have to. What are some of the most common misconceptions you've run across over the many years, 16,000 cases that people have about Medicaid and its coverage for long-term care?
Okay, so for Medicaid, just for clarification, because it's easy to confuse them, and you said Medicare earlier. So
did I say Medicare? Oh, my.
Yeah, you did, no problem. So it's Medicaid that we're talking about.
Right.
And common misconceptions are, if you don't do something, if you don't give away all the money 5 years ago to somebody else or to some special trust, then it's too late. You can't qualify and you just have to spend your money. That is just so wrong on so many levels. It can be the last minute. You could have been in a nursing home or getting home health care, assisted living for years and still qualify for Medicaid if you do the right planning. The difference is one's called pre-planning. That's done 5 years prior. And then there's crisis planning, which is what we do. Crisis planning is last minute. I didn't do any of that pre-planning stuff, but I need help paying for long-term care. What do I do? So that's the biggest misconception. The other big misconception is that every state will take your home. And nobody takes your home. They lien your home and then collect back from it later. Now in Florida, where I'm at, although I do handle Medicaid in other states, your home is just not attachable under any circumstances. So that's a big misconception. There's a bunch that you can do it on your own, right? That you can just go apply and you don't have to move any assets. You don't have to do anything. And I'll get through it. I'll work my way through it. You're not going to, unless you're truly broke and you truly will chase paperwork and be relentless, beating on the door of Medicaid to make them do the right thing.
Yeah, and that's like a full-time job in itself.
That's a full-time job.
Yeah. What are some of the typical challenges that individuals face when applying for Medicaid?
Well, wrong denials for one. Literally, I don't have a scientific for this, but based on all the cases we do, I would say about 40% of cases get denied wrongly. Like they're just 40% of all cases get denied, right? And most of those are because they say they didn't get the documentation that you can absolutely prove you provided them. And they go, well, we can't find it. So you got to send it again. And then they try to make you reapply when they should be going off the old application. And you're sitting on 3-hour holds just to talk to somebody. And if you hit 3 hours, the system automatically hangs up on you and you get to call back and try again.
Oh my God.
It's a nightmare. It really is.
Oh my God. That sounds awful. Are these tactics that they use? Or are they just woefully understaffed? Or
I think they're woefully understaffed. I think that the automatic hang up after 3 hours maybe is a tactic because it seems like they could program their phone system to hold on a little longer,
As long as they want, you would think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to accuse them of being malicious, but certainly they're understaffed and, overworked and a lot of turnover and, all the problems you have in bureaucracies.
In bureaucracy, grumpy people. And yeah. How can the complexity of Medicaid eligibility requirements create difficulties for families trying to plan for long-term care?
So you can have misconceptions like, I can't give my house away. Well, in certain circumstances, you can. Well, I can't give any money away. Well, in certain circumstances, you can. Or, oh, well, they won't know about that. And that's a big one. Well, they won't know about that. They don't know about that money. Well, you don't want to commit Medicaid fraud. right? There's a lot of ways to fix things correctly. So let's disclose everything. If you don't disclose it, forgetting the Medicaid fraud piece, they may find it. And by the time they find it, months have gone by. In a nursing home scenario, now you owe the nursing home probably more money than you protected. In a home health care scenario, your loved one's going to go without home health care for a longer period of time. Assisted living is just going to take longer to get the benefit. So it's better just to deal with everything up front the right way. It's cheaper. It's more efficient. It's less stressful. It's just the right way to do it. There's a lot of complexities. There's so many little rules. People go, well, my name's on the account. They can't count it. Well, yeah, their name's on the account too, and they're going to count it. So there's just a lot of common sense things you would think. I tell clients this. The rules don't have to make any sense at all. Not a bit. They're just the rules. You can fight them and lose, or you can accept them and win. So let's accept them, use them to our favor, and win.
Yeah, play the game how they want it played and
play the game how they want it.
Yeah. Do you find that people often will try to think about ways to hide assets or try to kind of cheat the system a little bit? I mean, is that a natural thing that we have as humans, that we want to, as Americans, that we want to try to like get every penny we can out of the government?
Well,
it's probably more of a philosophical question, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not uncommon that it happens, but it's also not it's not always that everybody does it, but I think it's a natural tendency. You pay into the system for so many years, and the system told this generation that in nursing homes now, pay into the system. We'll take care of your most basic needs when you're old. And then you get old and they go, oh, we didn't mean the last, final, most expensive part. No, sorry, you paid tax for nothing. And if you think about it from a ethical standpoint, people scream ethics. Well, how is it ethical that somebody can work their whole life, pay into the system, be responsible, save money, do everything they're supposed to do, and the irresponsible person can maybe not work at all or work and spend every dime, not be responsible? They can get benefits pretty easy, right? I mean, you still got to go through the bureaucracy, but you don't have to worry about protecting anything. Well, to me, it makes sense that the person who worked and was productive and paid into the system ought to be able to get the same help that somebody who wasn't gets.
I would agree with you there.
So I think that element of it makes it a natural tendency. And if I may, let me throw out this quick story to you. I had a caseworker at DCF back in the day, years ago, when you used to go sit down in front of them and talk to them. And she blistered me up one side and down the other about how unethical I was and how I was helping people steal from the state. And after about 20 minutes of getting beat up, I said, all right, I get your point, but can we get through this case? And we did, and she approved it. And about 2 years later, her mother went to the nursing home. Guess who she hired? Yeah. So when it becomes personal, it changes your perspective.
It does. It does in so many different ways, right? We've all seen that in so many different aspects of life, that you can say all you want about a system or about a group of people, but then once you have to be in that yourself, then all of a sudden your whole perception changes. Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Well, she probably also was like, I know this guy's good, so I'm going to hire this guy. He sat there and took all of my abuse.
Well, we've actually had a number of people, because we worked with DCF for so many years, that their family members end up having this situation, and they call the person at DCF that we work with, and they go, who should I hire? And they go, call Platinum. It's pretty normal.
What financial strategies should families consider to qualify for Medicaid while still protecting their assets?
Well, it'd be kind of unethical and misguided for me to say what somebody should consider without knowing their facts. What I will say is that they should look for three primary things when they are doing any type of crisis planning. They should look at maintaining control of the assets. They don't want to lose control. Keeping cash liquid, not tying it up. Many strategies that people or attorneys will use takes the money and ties it up in like real estate owned by a third party. So you're now trading cash for real estate, and you don't have access to the cash anymore. Well, if ever you're going to need any cash, it might be during this time of life, right? Mm-hmm. So don't tie the cash up and don't pay any income taxes. In other words, I don't mean evade taxes. I mean use strategies that don't require you to pay any tax. Mm-hmm. So those three things are the things that I would focus on. And if you can't find somebody that knows how to do that, call us. We'll get you with an attorney that does. And to go a step further, people go, well, why wouldn't I just have an attorney do everything? Well, number one, you got to find an attorney that really knows, and a lot claim that they do that don't really. And secondly, just because they're good at the strategy doesn't mean they're good at getting it through the system. Two different issues.
So there's a concept called spend down. It's a process. What can you discuss that and how it impacts long-term care?
Sure. So spend downs just simply means that you're taking the countable assets that are too much, right? And you're spending them on allowable items or assets or expenses or services that makes that money go down to a level that you qualify for Medicaid. What most people automatically click in their mind is that they have to spend down that money on the care before Medicaid will kick in. That is not true. They can spend it on all kinds of things, right? If real estate is a non-countable asset, if I spend it on real estate, then that's part of the spend down. If I prepay my funerals, that's part of the spend down. If I do a personal services contract, we discussed, I think, in another podcast about the taxation issues of that. That's something to consider. But if you spend it on the personal services, then that's an allowable expenditure and you've spent it down, but you've gotten something in return besides the health care that Medicaid would pay for. So spend down is simply getting rid of your assets according to the rules so that you can qualify for Medicaid now instead of later.
Okay. That's pretty simple the way you explained it. That was good. Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing it down to my level. Is it important to start planning for long-term care early?
That's not a simple answer. For somebody particularly wealthy, yes, it probably is. For somebody who has, anywhere from $10,000 to $1.5 million, $2 million, probably not. And here's why. Because to start planning early means you're going to give your money away to somebody else or to some type of trust where you lose control. Well, most people in their 70s and 80s, which is the people normally that are going to be looking at nursing home, they don't want to give up control of their money. They worked their whole life to get it. Yep. Now, if you have $10 million and you want to give up $9.5 million to some trust and you got a $500,000 slush fund, yeah, you'll do that. You can get your head around that. You got a $500,000 and you say give away, 400,000 and have 100, most people won't do that. Mm-hmm. So what I tell people is unless you're pretty extraordinarily wealthy, just wait. We'll deal with it when the time comes. That way you maintain control. The risk in that being that the rules do change and that crisis planning becomes not available. I don't see that on the horizon, but it could happen. And that is a risk in my opinion of wait. For disclosure, I got a dog in the hunt, right? If you wait and you come to me at that time, then I get to make $1. But that's not why I'm saying it. It's just most people just don't want to lose that control.
Right. It makes sense. What role do legal documents like powers of attorney and advance directives play in the planning procedure of long-term care?
Well, trust will always play a role because you have to read the trust to see what it says and, understand it. But we don't need anybody to do a trust unless it's for excess income. Powers of attorney are the single most important document that you can possibly have when it comes to Medicaid planning, in my opinion, and properly worded one. And in Florida, there's superpowers. They're called superpowers put in by the statutes. The statutes don't call them that, but generically they're called superpowers. And there's 7 items that if they're not specifically listed in the power of attorney and initialed next to, then the power of attorney does not have those powers. Things like the ability to change beneficiary designations, set up certain types of trust, including the kind to reduce income. So that power of attorney is ultra important, and that it have the right wording is ultra important. And while this is not the technical test, the words are, if you have a 2-page power of attorney, we probably have a problem. If you have a 1-page power of attorney, we probably have a problem. If we have a 12 or 13-page power of attorney, we're probably in good shape in most likelihood.
Okay. So there's probably a lot of people who may have stumbled upon our video here that are trying to learn about this Medicaid procedure and how they can go about it, maybe trying to figure out how to navigate this all on their own. If they've made it this far and they're learning about the steps, what advice would you give to them if that's what they're trying to do, is learn as much as they can so they can handle it on their own?
Well, if they want to shoot an email to info info at platben, platben.com, and say, please send me your book. I'll be happy to send them a PDF of a book I wrote about Medicaid planning, and that should certainly help them get headed in the right direction, understanding things.
Okay. Do you think that people should do this on their own?
On occasion, it can be okay. I mean, truly, if you haven't given any money away in the last 5 years, you truly don't have more than $2,000 in countable assets. Now you got to know what countable assets are, right? So they probably ought to make the call and talk to me, and I'll tell them whether they fall under all the limits. And then if they want to take on the challenge of getting through the bureaucracy, they're probably not going to have any pitfalls, right? They're just going to have to fight their way through the bureaucracy. And
they just have to deal with all the stuff that goes along with that. Yeah.
And if they need to do that, because they don't have the money, understandable. And I'll tell them that. If in the conversation I find out, well, I did pay for my granddaughter to, one of her tuitions at college last year. And, those kind of things that are natural things that people want to do in life. And they're good things done with good intention, but they can mess up the Medicaid. And then I'll explain it to them. So maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah. No, that's very fair. All right. Well, thank you for listening to Medicaid Mastery, a cut above, explaining the real long-term care Medicaid system with Medicaid guru Antony Turbeville. To connect with Tony and the team at Platinum Benefits, that website again is platben.com. And please remember to like and subscribe to the channel and leave us a review. Tony, great to talk with you. Thanks for all the info.
Kevin, likewise. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.